Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk about Azure, how to migrate a virtual machine from on-premises to Azure. So the agenda of this meeting will be introducing to VMware cloud migration, defining cloud migration goals, migration approaches, and planning the migration. So let's get into it. Introduction to VMware cloud migration. So VMware Cloud Migration enables organization to modernize infrastructure, reduce in cost and gain flexibility, and we can utilize more of Azure services. Any services that we have in Azure, we can utilize it and integrate with our applications and everything. So migration involves moving workloads from on-premises data center to cloud environment, empowering which will empower organization to innovate faster by scaling application efficiently. The key consideration for migration would be data security and compliance and performance requirement. And as I said before, integration. So the business event, what are the business event which will help us understanding, which will help us move to migrate to Azure. So data center exit will help us, companies leaving physical data center often migrate to cloud to reduce cost by avoiding expensive hardware and maintenance, which will drastically reduce the cost for the maintaining the hardwares that we have in data center. Merger or acquisition during merger, integrating an IT systems can be very much of complex. On premises can have multiple environment. The cloud migration help you reducing the vendors and complex, technical complexity in terms of any workloads that we have in on premises. Reduction in capex, moving to cloud means less spending on physical infrastructure, where you can go for a lot of reservations so that you would get benefits out of, by reserving the environment in Azure. So lifecycle management again, as end of support for critical technologies will. When an older system lose supports, migrate to cloud ensures the greater business flexibility and agility. Compliance changes. The new regulation might require enhancing security or reporting cloud migration, enables adapting to new compliance requirement. And some industries need storing data in a specific region. So as everybody knows that Azure has a data center across the globe, and we can choose which data center or which region that we need to have our data resides at rest. Um if stability and minimizing disruptions are the key goals, migrating to cloud allows scaling and meeting the global and the local demands. You can scale up as and when required, or you can reduce it as and when business is normal. So now let's get into VMware migration to Azure. So there are two options that we have to migrate to Azure. One is Azure Migrate, and second is integration and interoperability. So Azure Migrate on on-premises VM runs a workload by using Azure Infrastructure as a Service, managing VMs with Azure Resource Manager. Here we will be implementing an appliance server. When we are choosing Azure Migrate option, we will be running an Azure appliance server in our local data center in vCenter, and which will help us migrate and discover the server and migrate the server to Azure. Integration and interoperability. Here we will have our bare metal solution available in Azure as an VMware solution. You can utilize, run the native workloads on Azure bare metals, and you can utilize the same UI to control your on-premises VM and also your online Azure VM. Uh, in this session, we are going to look into Azure Migrate option using agentless. So there are multiple options that you have. When we are running in on-premises data center, everything will be bare metal and then a virtual machine. Even your application will run in a virtual machine. Your database will run in virtual machine. But when it comes to Azure, you can choose what is your requirement. So assessing an on-premises VM, Hyper-V, and virtualization, move them to Azure as a virtual machine, as an infrastructure, as a code. You can move your VM as a VM in Azure. Whereas in your SQL Server, you can move them as a virtual machine in Azure, or you can move it as a managed instance or SQL database in Azure, where you can pay only for the utilization that you're doing. So you no need to worry about the infrastructure or the complexity of the data and configuring the database. Azure App Service, you might be running your application in an in IaaS or Apache or Tomcat, whichever the app service that you are running in your on-premises. You can migrate it to Azure, and you can utilize the app service or app service environment in Azure, which can help you drastically reduce your cost and drastically reduce your maintenance and everything. And as we discussed in the previous poll, you could see that Azure VMware solution increase in business agility, where you can migrate your VMware as a bare metal solution, and you can integrate both, and you can run both environment from a single UI here. So evaluating your current setup, the assessment phase, environment assessment. Before we do a migration, certainly we need to have our VM inventory, like all the items, CPU, memory, storage, and OS. What is dependencies, the application dependencies, and compatibility check with everything. So discovering server using an appliance. As I said before, we will be using an appliance server, which is nothing but a virtual machine. We will be deploying it in vCenter, any vCenter host. That particular application server, that particular appliance server will help us discover the environment, and it will help us migrate from on-premises to online Azure. So the prerequisite is certainly everybody will have their own Azure account and prepare a VMware environment for the discovery. Yes, certainly we will have a VMware environment also. That is why we are in this webinar. And apart from that, we need to create a project in Azure portal and set up the Azure Migrate appliance is a basic step that we need to do, and start continuous discovery, and we can do the migration. So let's get into that now. So as you can see in the screen, we just need to log into Azure portal using global admin, or you can utilize the owner permission to the particular subscription, or you can have contributor permission to particular subscription, and you need to create Azure Migrate service. So once you create the service, you can see that the first one is generate a project key, name your appliance, make sure that you name your appliance and generate the proper project key. So the project key is very important. We will be using the same project key in next upcoming slides. And once it's been done, you need to download the OVA file, which will be around 8 to 12 GB of size. So now I am in vCenter, where I have selected my host, and I'm deploying that particular OVA file in the vCenter. So this OVA file is nothing but the virtual machine that we talked about before as an appliance server. So this is what is going to help us migrate from on-premises to online. So the prerequisite for this machine is we should have 32 GB of RAM and 8 vCPUs and 80 GBs of disk space. And you could see here, I have configured everything in the screenshot, where we just need to follow the on-screen instruction and select the name and folder from your vCenter, and create an storage account. Select the storage account and select the right network, and hit finish. Your appliance will be ready in 5 to 10 minutes. Now, the appliance server has been deployed, and now we need to configure that appliance server here. So log into appliance server as an administrator, and the setup prerequisite wizard will automatically pop up through the browser. And first we need to check the connectivity to Azure, and it will connect. If you have any proxy servers, make sure that you select the correct proxy servers here. Add the proxy details here so that it would connect to the Azure. Next, it will check the time sync between Azure and the machine, and next, check the latest update and register the appliance. The registering appliance is where we need to paste the project key that we collected in the previous slide from the Azure portal. Uh, so, and verify that project key. Once it has been verified, it will do an automatic update for this virtual machine. So make sure that it has been completed. Next, add your Azure credential here so that it will talk to Azure Migrate service so that it will be in communication. So you need to have required permission, either the owner permission for the subscription, or you can be a global admin also. Next, in virtual disk deployment kit is installed. This particular exe file is mandatory one. Is an update file that has been released by Microsoft, and make sure that you have you are downloading this file and you are pasting it in C program files VMware virtual disk deployment kit. Next, credential manager, add vCenter credential, select the add credential, enter the username and password for vCenter server account to discover the server. So this particular virtual machine should have credential of your vCenter, and also it should have credential of Azure. So only then it can communicate with both, and it can start discovering your on-premises, and it will help us migrate to online. So select add discovery source, enter the IP address or FQDN of the vCenter, and choose a friendly name for the credential, and leave the port as 443 or specific. You can customize your port as per the requirement, but it should be opened in the other end also, and validate the connection. And if you want to discover your applications, make sure that you provide the credential of your application servers, whether it can be ASP.NET or it can be SQL database or it can be any database, but make sure that you are giving the credential and it has been mapped below. So once it has been done, you will be able to start discovering the server. On bottom right corner, you could see that the ongoing discovery count, which is 23 so far. And now you see the discovery phase has been completed, and we have discovered around 36 servers, 3 SQL, and 1 web app. And on the appliance, you can see that it is registered 1. So this is what the server that we have just configured as an appliance server. Next, assessment. In assessment is where Azure will help us try and understand what we are going to do in terms of estimation or readiness or supportability or saving cost. So how much I'm going to spend once I move to Azure. You will get you will get the answers before you migrate to Azure also. So in assessment, you can choose a batch. Hundreds of VMs can be assessed at a single given point of time, and it can be checked upon on OS, license, Windows version compatibility, and you can do savings in terms of reserving. In Azure, we have 1 year or 3 year reservation, where you can get benefits out of 60 to 40 to 60%, I believe. So next is what this is how the assessment looks like, how much we have saved, and for one particular VM that we have selected for assessment, we are going to pay for $68 around. Next, we will be starting the replicate because the replication will use Azure Site Recovery, and it will use storage account, and it will use recovery service vault. So how it's going to happen is what is described in this slide. So start replicating. Select VM from replication. Azure Site Recovery initiates a job to manage data transfer, beginning data tracking, and replication. Initial replication, it will take the full backup of the on-premises VM and it copy to the Azure storage account, transfer all the data to create an identical copy in cloud using recovery service vault. Delta replication is where it's going to check for the changes which happened, recent changes happened in the source VM, So it will keep on checking the changes in the source VM, and it will start replicating. Test migration, it is optional, but we recommend to do it, because once you do test migration, you will know that your application and your data, if it is intact, or if the configuration is all good, or if you want to change it. So you can do all the possibility checks in the test migration, and you can start the actual migration, and you can stop it. So now in replicate, now we are ready to replicate VM in Azure Storage and Recovery Service Vault, following by the testing and migrating to the production. So as I said before, you can replicate up to 100 VMs at once. For more, you need to create multiple batches. You can create multiple batches, and you can start multiple batches, and you can add number of VMs, a number of, I mean, 100, maximum is 100. You can choose up to, our convenient, and start the replication. So Azure Migrate uses Azure Site Recovery, requires and Site Recovery Vault to store replicated data of your VM, which uses recovery point and manages the replication policies. Continuous data replication. ASR will take care of your continuous replication, which is the delta replication will happen through ASR. So replication process flow, here is where you need to start selecting the virtual network in Azure. And if you want to change your virtual machine name, or you want to change the compute of the VM, you can choose everything here, a disk, and you can start replicating. So now you can see that the replication has been completed and replication health is healthy, but the test migration status, it still shows that it is pending. So either you can do a test migration and check the validate your authenticity of your data, or you can check the configuration details, everything in Azure, which I have done here. So I have tested the migration, and I have logged into Azure, and I have checked all the configurations in Azure. So before we log into that machine, that particular migrated VM should have RDP enabled. In order to do that, that particular VM should have either you can log into that VM through public IP, or you can have an NSG created, a network security group created, and make sure port 3389 is open for that VM to log in. So you can have a secondary VM created in Azure itself to log in, or you can have a public IP address login from public through 3389. Now the test migration has been completed as here. Now we can clean up the test migration, and we can actually start the actual migration. Select migrate to initial the final replication. The steps prompt you to shut down the virtual machine briefly to prevent the data loss. Once you start replicating, your source VM will be shut down for a brief moment, so that it will actually do the cutover and migrate it to Azure. And once it has been migrated, you can utilize all the services. That means Defender or Azure Backup or monitoring tool, everything that can be utilized in the VM. So Azure Defender, I would recommend to enable Azure Defender for all the workloads that you have in Azure, because it gives much better advice. So regarding that particular VM and its configuration.
Hello everyone, myself Shafrin. I'll be covering VMware migration to GCP workloads. So in this session, I'll walk you through how VMware workloads can be effectively migrated to GCP Cloud Compute Engine. Before moving to that migration, we are excited to share that our GCP offerings are now rebranded as CloudSense. So if you have time, please visit cloudsense.ai to know more. So after defining source and target environment as a first step of migration, we have to define the workload. So basically, there are two types of workloads. One is an cloud optimized, and another one is a legacy. So legacy workloads are developed without depending on cloud environment. Example, data center servers, and cloud optimized are natively more operational, scalable, and more secure one. So in this scenario, we are migrating legacy workloads to cloud optimized. So our approach involves 6 key phases. On the onboarding phase, we will identify which VM should we migrate and check whether the selected VM is ready for migration, like accessing its things like OS configuration, memory details, or any other dependencies are there before the migration. So in the replication state, we won't be doing anything. It's an automatic process. The data replication will be happens in the background, so it continuously copy the data from source VM to GCP until the final cutover. So in the target environment, we will configure the setting up the things for compute engines, like selecting the project network towards that compute engine, and instance type and memory details all will be we will decide here. So in test clone, it's a optional one, but it's highly recommended one, because we actually create a test clone from source VM to GCP environment. So we created a replicated data in our previous step. So from that replicated state, we will test the migration process. Actually, so we can check the performance, and it's check everything works fine as it's expected. So in the cutover migration, this is where the actual migration will happens. So during the cutover phase, we will stop the source VM and perform the migration. So in the final replication, it occurs and production server will be created in GCP environment. So in final stage, we will perform the cleaning process of this replicated data, and any other stored resource associated with this VM will be deleted here. So coming on to migration method, there are different methods available to work migrating to GCP, but we have a choose rehost method, because it's often fastest and most effective for VMware workloads. So other than rehost, we have replatform, refactor, re-architect, rebuild, and repurchase. Refact will be used when we want to migrate a data with some modification. If we are changing means, then we can go for replatform. For example, if we are having a on-prem SQL server with some modification, we will go for MongoDB service means we have to do some changes for that adaptation. So for that scenario, we can go for replatform. In refactor, it is used when we want to modify the application to utilize the GCP environment. We can go for refactor. For example, refactoring the monolithic application to set the microservices and deploy them in Kubernetes engine or cloud run. So in the re-architect, it's used when we are developing application from scratch. We can go for React or re-artifact. In rephase, we will repurchase the on-prem server with new cloud solution, or else purchasing SaaS offering from any cloud service. So benefits would be, we can immediately access the infrastructure right after the migration, and it's a quicker migration with minimal changes. So it simplifies the process of moving workloads. So, for tools to support this migration, we have several tools available. So, first one is in Google Cloud Migrate for Compute Engine. So, it basically automates the entire migration process. So, another one is in Migrate to VM. In this process, the data is copied in the background. So, the source VM will be completely operational, and it also enables rapid migration. So using cloud transfer service, we can migrate cloud storage from another cloud providers, or else from on-prem cloud storage. And using DB migration, we can migrate relational database to Google Cloud. So using transfer appliance, this will be used for a large amount of data transfer, like terabyte to petabyte. And for using BigQuery application is used for moving data warehouse to BigQuery. So architecture will be, obviously we will have on-prem server and Google Cloud environment. We will deploy OVA in on-prem environment. It will act as a migrate connector. So connection between on-prem to Google Cloud will be, we will utilizing Cloud VPN. Also we will allow port 443 for the connection, and we will utilize some APIs. And we will be having two project, host project and target project. In host project, the migrate connector will be hosted here. But other than that, the host project will be visible, not visible to us. Only the target project will be visible to us. There we will create the compute engine and migrate to VM will be done here, and we will use certain APIs. So benefits will be so benefit will be by so no maintenance cost will be there. So after that, we can immediately access. So there will be a reduced risk during the migration. Also, GCP offers GCP offers a global network of data center, so we can deploy our VM in various region. It will help us on both disaster recovery and low latency access also. So prerequisites would be we will be having projects, as I said before. We will manage resource and organize the things in this project, and after the migration we will using compute engine for the VMs to access, and vCenter console will be used for managing the on-prem environment. So in IAM we will use both IAM and service account. IAM should have VMware migration admin permission and service account creator role and service account key admin role. It will be used by migrate connector for runtime data transfer, and service account is only used for the registration. And in cloud VPN, we have two options. Either we can go for cloud VPN or cloud interconnect. In this scenario, we are using cloud VPN. Under this also, we have two options: classic VPN and HA VPN. We will be going for HA VPN because HA VPN provides more high availability and reliability by utilizing its multiple tenants. So it will be on active configuration. So firewall rules we will be allowing 443 for secure connection, and API compute engine API and VMware migration API we will be using. And for hardware specification, the migrate connector at least should have 4 CPUs and 16 GB of RAM and 30 GB of database. So let me walk you through how to install migrate connector using OVA. So first we have to download the OVA and log into vCenter admin console. Then after that we have to deploy the OVA template either on organization wide or else a particular wise. If we want to deploy, if we want to migrate whole data center, we can go with deploying the OVA in org wide. If we want to migrate to particular host, means we can deploy that OVA in particular host. So follow upping on the prompt, we will upload the OVA, and it will ask us to specify the VM name and select storage and select the public key. So we have to provide one public key and save the private key. Using Puttigen, we will create public key and private key along with username and password. This will be used for during the machine login. We will be utilizing these. So for the network configuration, we will be having three options: public, restricted and private one. If we are choosing public, means we will be migrating the VMware over the public internet. We will be using private, and restricted will be site to site VPN concepts. So once the deployment is completed, start the VM and note its IP. So this will be used for next step, registering the migrate connector with GCP. These are the details. After that, using M4C status, after login to that machine, if we are using M4C status, M4C means machine migrate for compute. So initially the machine will be on healthy state, but the API connection and network connection will be unreachable. We have to make them to reachable. So using M4C register, we can register that machine. So it will ask us to provide some details like vCenter IP and admin credential of that vCenter. And we have to provide one Google Access token, which can be generated in Cloud Shell using G Cloud space auth space print hyphen access hyphen token. After that, it will give 4 to 5 lines of access token. Then we have to paste it over here and select the project and region and source name for that resource migrate to compute engine resource. Finally, once again, if we check the M4C status means after this will be on healthy state. It will establish a connection between VMware to Google Cloud project, and source name project all will be displayed here. So once registration is completed, now we can see that 63 total VMs have been founded, and the details will be here. So using this, we can generate a report. Report will be used while we are migrating the machine, because we can actually see what things should be decreased or what things should be increased for that after the migration. So the report will be having VM names, OS details, CPU details, memory utilization, used memory, all this will be here. So just simply select the VMs and create a report. It will within few minutes it will create a report. So after that, select the VM which we want to migrate and add to migration. So on the migration, we have to start the replication. So replication will be having two steps. First one is an initial replication. So it will take initial snapshot of the source VM and it replicates to Google Cloud. So depending on the amount of, it will take minutes to hours to complete. So initial will be take lots of time. After that, second incremental will follow up the first increment replication. So every 2 hours of interval, it will take the replication of that machine. We can modify the incremental cycle. So after also we can pause, resume, finalize the replication based on the priority. If we want to migrate 10 virtual machine means, we can pause the replication for a low dependency. If we want to migrate one VM on very quickly means, we can go for that particular replication. So after that, we will be after the successful replication of data, we want to provide the compute engine three major details: general, machine configuration detail, and network details. On general details, we will be providing instance name, project, and obviously zone for that compute engine to deploy. Under the machine configuration, we will be selecting the machine types and machine family, and host on maintenance, and automatic restart. It should be on state. And networking details, if we want to go for default one, then we can go for it, or else we can customize it. After that, we will perform a test clone. If the test clone will be success, then we can perform the cutover migration. This is an actual migration where the source VM will be stopped. So we will face downtime from this process. After that migration, we can see the VM will be reflected in compute engine page. So we can take RDP for Windows or SSH for Linux machine. So that's it.